My name is Mark, and for years I thought I had the perfect life, the perfect marriage. My wife, Sarah, was everything to me. She was my rock, my confidant, my best friend. We'd been together for over a decade, and every day felt like a gift. As her 35th birthday approached, I wanted to make it truly special, a milestone worthy of her incredible spirit. I'd been planning a huge surprise party for months, pouring all my love and energy into every detail. This wasn't just any birthday. It was a celebration of us, of the life we had built, and the future we dreamed of. The idea for the camera came to me quite suddenly. I wanted to capture Sarah's genuine reaction, that pure, unadulterated shock and joy when she walked into a room full of her loved ones. I envisioned us watching the footage back years from now, laughing and reminiscing about that unforgettable day. It would be a sweet memory, a tangible piece of our happiness to cherish. I spent hours online, researching the best discrete cameras, eventually settling on a tiny, almost invisible device that promised high-quality video and audio. It felt like a fun, harmless addition to the grand surprise. Installing the camera was a clandestine operation in itself. I waited for Sarah to go out with her friends one afternoon, then carefully positioned it in our living room. I tucked it behind a large potted plant, its lens peeking out just enough to capture the main entrance, where she would first step in. I tested it repeatedly, making sure the angle was perfect, the lighting sufficient, and the view unobstructed. I didn't want to miss a single second of her priceless expression. It was all part of the elaborate plan, a hidden gem to capture a moment of pure bliss. My excitement for the party was palpable. The guest list was meticulously curated, including all our closest friends and family, some even traveling from out of state. The decorations were ordered, a vibrant mix of balloons and streamers in her favorite colors. The caterer was booked, and I'd even commissioned a special cake from a local bakery, designed with an inside joke only Sarah would understand. Every single detail was chosen with her in mind, a testament to how much she meant to me. I poured my heart and soul into making this day absolutely perfect, a grand gesture of my unwavering love. But amidst all the joyous anticipation, a tiny, almost imperceptible hint of unease had begun to surface. It was nothing concrete, just a vague, nagging feeling I couldn't quite pinpoint. Sarah had seemed a little distant lately, perhaps more tired than usual. She'd been spending more time in her home office, or sometimes taking calls in another room. I brushed it off, of course. It was probably just the stress of her growing freelance design business, or maybe the pre-birthday jitters that even the birthday person can feel. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination working overtime, fueled by my desire for everything to be perfect. I chose to believe it was just a temporary phase, an insignificant blip in our otherwise flawless life together. The big day finally arrived, crisp and bright, much like my mood. I woke Sarah up with a gentle kiss, wishing her a happy birthday. I brought her breakfast in bed, her favorite blueberry pancakes, and watched her eyes light up with delight. We exchanged gifts, and she loved the antique necklace I'd painstakingly found for her. Everything felt normal, perfect even. Then it was time for the next stage of the plan. I regretfully informed her that a sudden work emergency had come up, and I had to leave for a few hours. This was, of course, a carefully constructed lie, designed to get her out of the house for a bit, so the guests could arrive and set up. I told her to enjoy her morning, maybe get some pampering done, and that I'd be back as soon as possible. As I left the house, I felt a surge of pride, a thrill of anticipation. The surprise was moments away, and I couldn't wait to see her face. I was so convinced that this day would solidify our happiness, cementing another beautiful memory in the tapestry of our lives. Little did I know, this carefully planned surprise would unravel a truth far more shocking than any birthday celebration. Little did I know, this carefully planned surprise would unravel a truth far more shocking than any birthday celebration. Sarah and I, our story began in the most quintessential college way possible, at a raucous fraternity party. I was a sophomore, she a freshman, and amidst the blaring music in crowded rooms, our eyes met across a sea of dancing bodies. She was vibrant, a whirlwind of energy and laughter, with an infectious smile that instantly drew me in. I still remember the way her hair caught the light and the intelligent spark in her eyes as we started talking. What began as casual banter quickly deepened into a conversation that lasted for hours. Oblivious to the chaos around us, we talked about everything and nothing, discovering an instant connection that felt both exhilarating and profoundly comforting. It was as if we had known each other for years, our minds perfectly attuned. Our early relationship was a whirlwind of discovery and shared adventures. Our first date was at a small, unassuming Italian restaurant just off campus, a place that quickly became our spot. We'd spend hours there, sharing pasta and dreams, making plans for a future that felt limitless. We bonded over a mutual love for the outdoors, spending weekends hiking the scenic trails around our university, our conversations flowing as easily as the mountain streams we encountered. We took spontaneous road trips, explored hidden corners of the city, and simply reveled in each other's company. There was an ease to our relationship, a natural rhythm that made every moment feel joyful and effortless. We were two halves of a whole, perfectly complementing each other's quirks and passions. As our love deepened, so did our commitment. After graduation, we took the leap and moved in together, a decision that felt both exciting and utterly right. The small apartment we shared became our sanctuary, filled with laughter, late-night talks, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee in the mornings. It wasn't long before I knew, with absolute certainty, that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Sarah. The proposal was simple, heartfelt, and utterly unforgettable. Our wedding day, a sun-drenched affair surrounded by our closest friends and family, remains one of the happiest memories of my life. Standing at the altar, looking into her eyes, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and profound joy. We were building a life together, brick by brick, with each moment cementing our bond even further. We eventually found our perfect home, a charming house in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, a place where we envisioned raising our future family. Our careers evolved alongside our relationship. I pursued my passion for technology, becoming a software engineer, while Sarah, with her incredible artistic talent, thrived as a graphic designer. We both worked hard, driven by a desire to build a comfortable and stable life, but we always prioritized each other. No matter how demanding our jobs became, we made sure to carve out time for our shared rituals, our weekly date nights, our weekend hikes, or simply quiet evenings spent curled up on the couch. We understood the importance of nurturing our connection, of being present for one another amidst the demands of modern life. Our social circle was a vibrant tapestry, woven from our individual friendships and family ties. Sarah was particularly close to her younger sister, Emily, a bond I admired deeply. Emily was a constant presence in our lives, often joining us for holidays and casual dinners. My best friend, David, had been by my side since childhood. He was more than a friend. He was family. He and Sarah had developed a comfortable camaraderie over the years, often teasing each other good-naturedly. Our families blended seamlessly, creating a large, supportive network that made us feel truly blessed. We cherished these connections, knowing they added richness and depth to our lives. The dream of starting our own family was a recurring theme in our conversations. We often spoke about having children, imagining what kind of parents we would be, picturing tiny footsteps echoing through our home. We had even picked out names, discussed nursery themes, and talked about the values we wanted to instill in our future kids. It wasn't just a distant fantasy. It was a tangible, beautiful part of our shared future, a natural progression of the love we had built. This dream solidified our commitment, giving us something profound to look forward to, a new chapter in our evolving story. I truly believed we had a rock-solid foundation, built on unwavering trust, boundless love, and a shared vision for our future. Our relationship felt impenetrable, a safe harbor against the storms of life. I never once doubted our connection, our loyalty, or the depth of our commitment to each other. We had faced challenges, celebrated triumphs, and navigated the complexities of adult life hand in hand. Every step of the way, I felt secure in the knowledge that Sarah was my partner, my confidant, and my greatest supporter. The idea that anything could threaten this perfect harmony was simply unthinkable. It was a truth I held dear, a belief that formed the very bedrock of my existence. That belief in our rock-solid foundation carried us through years of profound happiness, a decade where our love only deepened and matured. We navigated the typical challenges of married life, job changes, the occasional minor health scare, disagreements that were always resolved with open communication and mutual respect. Each obstacle, rather than weakening us, seemed to reinforce our bond, proving that we were indeed stronger together. We learned to lean on each other, to find comfort and strength in our shared journey, emerging from each trial with a renewed sense of commitment and understanding. Our life together settled into a comfortable, cherished routine, woven with small, everyday moments that, in retrospect, were the true fabric of our happiness. Sunday mornings began with freshly brewed coffee, enjoyed on our porch as we planned the week ahead, or simply reveled in the quiet company. Evening walks with our golden retriever Baxter became a cherished ritual, a chance to unwind and connect after a long day. Movie nights, complete with popcorn and our favorite cozy blankets, were a staple. These weren't grand gestures, but rather the consistent, gentle rhythms of a life well lived, filled with an unspoken understanding and profound affection. These small, everyday moments were the bedrock of our shared existence, making our life together truly special. Sarah, with her innate kindness and unwavering strength, was my constant source of support. I remember a particularly stressful period at work when I was grappling with a complex project and immense pressure. I'd come home exhausted, often irritable, but Sarah never wavered. She listened patiently, offered insightful advice, and created a sanctuary of calm amidst the storm. When my mother fell ill, Sarah was there, not just for me, but for my entire family, offering practical help and emotional comfort. Her encouragement was a powerful force, her belief in me unwavering, even when my own faltered. She celebrated my successes as her own and soothed my frustrations with boundless empathy. I, in turn, tried my best to reciprocate that unwavering support. When Sarah decided to take the leap and start her own freelance graphic design business, a dream she had nurtured for years, I was her biggest cheerleader. I helped her set up her home office, spending weekends assembling furniture and troubleshooting tech issues. I listened patiently as she wrestled with client briefs and celebrated every new contract with genuine enthusiasm. I believed in her talent implicitly, and seeing her flourish professionally brought me immense joy. We were a team, always lifting each other up, always striving to help the other achieve their fullest potential. The little things, those seemingly insignificant gestures, were what truly defined the depth of our affection. Leaving handwritten notes on the fridge, a simple "I love you," or a silly inside joke just to brighten the other's day. Making each other's favorite meals after a particularly long week. Remembering the anniversaries of small, personal events. The day we adopted Baxter, the date of our first hiking trip, the exact moment we first said, "I love you." These weren't obligations. They were spontaneous expressions of a love so deep, it permeated every aspect of our lives, solidifying our connection in countless subtle ways. However, over the past 6 months, I had begun to notice subtle shifts, almost imperceptible at first, but slowly accumulating. Sarah, who was usually so present and engaged, seemed a bit more preoccupied. Her phone, once an occasional tool, had become an almost constant companion. She'd be tapping away at it more often, sometimes taking calls in another room. Her voice hushed. I'd ask her about it, and she'd brush it off, citing a demanding new client or a complex design project. I attributed it to her growing business, a natural consequence of her success. After all, she was building something she was passionate about, and that required focus. I rationalized these changes, telling myself that everyone needed their space, that perhaps she was just stressed with the demands of entrepreneurship. I didn't want to be the overbearing husband, constantly questioning her every move. I prided myself on being supportive, on trusting her implicitly. I thought giving her room, respecting her privacy, was the mark of a good partner. I told myself that her increased phone usage and occasional distance were simply symptoms of her dedication to her craft, not a sign of anything more sinister. It was easier to believe that than to entertain any unsettling alternatives. My love for her, and my faith in our relationship, made me an expert at self-deception. In retrospect, planning the surprise party became a convenient distraction, a way for me to channel any nascent worries into a flurry of activity. I threw myself into every detail, convinced that this grand gesture of love would not only celebrate Sarah, but also reaffirm our connection, bringing us even closer. It was my way of combating those fleeting, unpleasant doubts, of proving to myself that our love was as strong as ever. I believed that a spectacular display of affection would dispel any lingering shadows, reminding us both of the beautiful, powerful bond we shared. The party wasn't just for her. It was, in a way, for me too. A desperate attempt to solidify a happiness I now realize was already beginning to crack beneath the surface. The day of Sarah's 35th birthday arrived, a day I had meticulously planned down to the last detail. Every arrangement had been made in secret, a clandestine operation coordinated with a network of friends and family members who were all in on the surprise. The house was spotless, transformed into a festive, elegant space. Balloons in her favorite colors bobbed gently from the ceiling. A banner proclaiming, "Happy 35th birthday, Sarah," hung prominently, and the dining table was laden with an array of her favorite appetizers and drinks. The special cake, a custom-designed masterpiece, was safely tucked away in the refrigerator, ready for its grand reveal. I had ensured that every element was perfectly aligned, every guest knew their role, and every decoration was in its rightful place, all designed to create a moment of pure, unadulterated joy for my wife. That morning, after showering Sarah with gifts and making her a celebratory breakfast, I enacted the final phase of my plan. With a feigned sigh of regret, I told her I had a sudden, unavoidable work emergency that required me to leave for a few hours. I watched her face, a flicker of disappointment crossing her features, quickly replaced by understanding. I hugged her tightly, telling her to relax and enjoy her special day, promising to be back as soon as I could. Little did she know, my departure was merely a ruse, a crucial component of the surprise that was imminent. Leaving her alone in the house, I felt a familiar surge of anticipation, picturing her delighted expression when she walked through the door later that evening, completely unaware of the celebration awaiting her. I drove to David's house, where the other guests were already gathering, their excitement palpable. The air buzzed with suppressed energy, everyone eager to be a part of Sarah's big moment. I was practically vibrating with anticipation, my mind replaying scenarios of Sarah's reaction, envisioning her wide eyes and happy tears. I kept checking my watch, counting down the minutes until I would receive the signal from Emily that Sarah was on her way back home. My phone was gripped tightly in my hand, ready for the text that would send us all scrambling into position, ready to shout, "Surprise!" While waiting, a thought occurred to me. I decided to check the hidden camera feed on my phone. My initial intention was innocent enough to ensure everything looked perfect in the living room, to make sure the decorations hadn't shifted, or perhaps to catch a glimpse of Sarah's quiet moments before the party. I envisioned her perhaps reading a book, or simply enjoying the peaceful solitude before the house erupted with her loved ones. It would be a sweet, private memory, captured for posterity, a testament to her calm before the storm of celebration. As the feed loaded, I saw Sarah enter the living room. She wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. She walked around, straightening a cushion here, adjusting a framed photo there, a picture of domestic tranquility. Then her phone vibrated. I watched as she picked it up, her screen illuminating her face. Her expression, previously serene, shifted subtly. She looked around the room, almost furtively. A quick, almost imperceptible glance over her shoulder, as if checking if she was truly alone. Then she quickly typed a reply. A small, cold pang, like the brush of an icy feather, touched my chest. It was a fleeting sensation, quickly dismissed, but it registered as the first red flag, a discordant note in the symphony of my perfect plan. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. My brow furrowed in confusion. I hadn't planned for anyone to arrive before me. I expected it to be the caterer, perhaps, or an early bird guest who had mistimed their arrival, but I was certain I had communicated the schedule clearly. My heart gave a little lurch, a mix of annoyance and curiosity. Who could it be? And why were they here now, potentially jeopardizing the surprise? I watched, a knot forming in my stomach, as Sarah walked towards the door and opened it. And there he was. David, my best friend. My mind struggled to process this image. Why was David here? My initial thought was confusion, a frantic search for a logical explanation. Then I saw Sarah's reaction. It wasn't the surprised gasp I had anticipated from someone caught off guard. Instead, a knowing smile, soft and intimate, spread across her face. David stepped inside, and without a word, they immediately embraced. It was a long, intimate hug, far too tender for a simple, friendly greeting. My stomach dropped, a cold, heavy stone plummeting through me. Then, he cupped her face in his hands. My breath hitched. My vision narrowed, focusing solely on their intertwined figures. He leaned in, and his lips met hers. It wasn't a friendly peck, a casual brush. It was a deep, passionate kiss, lingering and undeniable. The world around me went silent, the joyous chatter of the other guests at David's house fading into a distant hum. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of disbelief and agony. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, suffocating. The meticulously constructed edifice of my life, my love, my trust, shattered into a million irreparable pieces before my very eyes. The immediate shock was a physical force, a punch to the gut, that left me winded and reeling. My mind, in a desperate attempt to protect itself, immediately jumped to disbelief and denial. No, this couldn't be real. It had to be a trick of the light, a glitch in the camera feed, a terrible misinterpretation of a perfectly innocent gesture. I thought I was seeing things, that my eyes were playing cruel tricks on me. This was Sarah, my Sarah, and David, my best friend, practically a brother. This couldn't be happening. It was a misunderstanding, a colossal, painful misunderstanding. With trembling fingers, I rewound the video. The digital timeline zipped back, then paused. I watched again. David's hands cupping Sarah's face, their lips meeting. The undeniable, lingering passion of the kiss. My breath hitched, a strangled sound caught in my throat. I rewound it again, and again. Each time, the reality hit harder, burrowing deeper into my consciousness, chipping away at my denial until it crumbled into dust. The truth was stark, brutal, and undeniable. The physical sensations that followed were overwhelming. A cold sweat broke out across my skin, chilling me to the bone despite the warmth of the room. My heart, which moments ago had been thrumming with excited anticipation, now hammered against my ribs, a frantic, irregular rhythm that threatened to burst from my chest. A high-pitched ringing started in my ears, drowning out the ambient sounds of David's house, isolating me in a terrifying bubble of my own agony. My stomach churned, a wave of nausea washing over me, threatening to send me to my knees. The joy and excitement for the party, the culmination of months of careful planning and hopeful anticipation, vanished in an instant, replaced by a crushing weight, a suffocating despair that stole my breath and clarity of thought. Through the haze of my own internal turmoil, I forced myself to watch the screen. Sarah and David, seemingly oblivious to the seismic shift they had just caused in my universe, moved away from the door. They sat down on the living room couch, the very couch where Sarah and I had shared countless movie nights, where we had dreamed about our future, where we had built a life together. They were talking in hushed tones, their heads close together. I couldn't hear their words, the camera's audio not quite clear enough to pick up their intimate whispers, but their body language was excruciatingly clear. They were close, their knees almost touching, their hands occasionally brushing as they spoke. They were comfortable, radiating an intimacy that twisted a knife in my gut. And then Sarah laughed, a soft, melodic sound. A laugh I thought was reserved exclusively for me, a laugh that had always filled my heart with warmth. Now it was a dagger, piercing through my shattered illusions. The realization, cold and sharp, sank in with agonizing slowness. My wife, my best friend, the two people I trusted most in the entire world, the pillars of my existence, were together. Not just in the same room, but in a complicit, intimate betrayal that scorched my very soul. I felt a profound sense of betrayal, so deep and visceral, it manifested as a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air. It wasn't just Sarah, and it wasn't just David. It was the two of them, combining forces to demolish everything I held dear. The magnitude of their deceit was almost incomprehensible, a betrayal that cut to the very core of my being. Just as this agonizing realization solidified, my phone buzzed in my hand. It was a text from Emily, signaling that the guests were ready, that Sarah was on her way back home. that it was time to put the final phase of the surprise into motion. I glanced at the camera feed one last time. As if on cue, Sarah and David quickly straightened up, their intimate proximity dissolving into a more casual distance. They composed themselves, their faces shifting into expressions of innocent anticipation, just moments before the doorbell rang again, signaling the arrival of the first party guests. They acted as if nothing had happened, as if the passionate kiss, the hushed conversation, the blatant betrayal had never occurred. The ease with which they transitioned from lovers to innocent friends was chilling, a testament to a deception far deeper than I could have imagined. A cold, hard resolve began to form amidst the chaos in my mind. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I couldn't go through with the party. I couldn't pretend. I couldn't stand there, feigning excitement, forcing a smile, while my world lay in ruins around me. I had to confront them, but not yet. Not like this. I needed a moment, a plan, some semblance of control over the spiraling situation. My immediate priority was to stop the charade, to prevent the innocent bystanders from becoming unwitting participants in my humiliation. With a heavy heart and a mind racing a mile a minute, I sent a group text message to everyone on the guest list. My fingers trembled as I typed out the words, "Sudden emergency. Party canceled. We'll explain later. So sorry." The replies started pouring in almost immediately. Confusion, disappointment, offers of help. But I couldn't care. Their confusion was a small price to pay for my dignity. A vague apology was all I could manage, a flimsy excuse to cover the gaping wound in my soul. The thought of facing them, of seeing their expectant faces, was unbearable. I got up from the couch, my legs feeling like lead, and mumbled something incoherent to David's bewildered wife about a sudden family emergency. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door, the well-wishes of confused friends echoing hollowly behind me. The drive home was a blur. My mind was a whirlwind, replaying the kiss, the hushed conversation, all the little signs I had so diligently ignored over the past 6 months. Every happy memory, every shared joke, every tender moment now felt tainted, poisoned by the image of Sarah and David in that embrace. The love and trust I had poured into my marriage, into my friendships, felt like a cruel joke, a grand illusion that had finally shattered, leaving behind only the bitter taste of betrayal. I arrived back at the house, the familiar structure now feeling alien, a monument to a shattered dream. The front door, usually a welcoming threshold, loomed like the entrance to a battlefield. I pushed it open, the sound echoing in the unnatural silence of the living room. Sarah and David were there, just as I had left them, though their relaxed postures had been replaced by a tense, nervous energy. They looked up, their faces a mixture of confusion and nascent worry. "Mark, what happened? Why did you cancel the party?" Sarah's voice was laced with concern, a performance I now saw through with chilling clarity. David, ever the diplomat, added, "Yeah, man, everyone's really worried. Is everything okay?" Their words, once comforting, now grated on my ears, a testament to their duplicity. I walked further into the room, my steps deliberate, my gaze fixed on them. My voice, when it came, surprised even me with its steadiness, its icy calm. There was no tremor, no hint of the hurricane raging inside me. "I know," I stated, the two simple words hanging in the air like a guillotine blade. "I know everything." Sarah's face, already pale, drained of any remaining color. Her eyes darted from me to David, then back again, a silent, desperate plea for help. David, who had always been so self-assured, looked stunned. His jaw slacked, his usual confident demeanor replaced by an undeniable guilt that radiated from him like a foul odor. They stammered, a pathetic attempt at denial forming on their lips. "What are you talking about, Mark?" Sarah began, her voice a thin, reedy whisper. "Nothing happened. We were just—" I cut her off, my voice still dangerously calm, but with an edge that brooked no argument. "Don't bother," I said, my gaze hardening. "I saw everything." The words hung heavy, laden with the weight of shattered trust and betrayal. They exchanged a horrified glance, their charade crumbling around them. Sarah's shoulders slumped, her carefully constructed facade collapsing. David swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the floor, unable to meet my gaze. I reached into my pocket, my fingers finding the familiar cold glass of my phone. With a flick of my thumb, I navigated to the hidden camera feed, selecting the most damning clip. The few seconds that had obliterated my world. I held it up, the screen facing them, and pressed play. The familiar image flickered to life. Sarah opening the door, David stepping in. The long, intimate embrace. And then, the kiss. The deep, passionate kiss that had seared itself into my memory. I watched their faces as they watched themselves. Sarah's eyes widened in horror, a gasp escaping her lips. David flinched as if physically struck, his shame palpable. The denial, the flimsy excuses, all evaporated under the irrefutable evidence of their betrayal. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Sarah's ragged breath. Then she broke. Her carefully controlled composure shattered, and tears began to stream down her face. "Mark," she sobbed, her voice thick with anguish. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Please believe me. I love you." Her words, meant to placate, only fueled the cold fire within me. A mistake? This wasn't a drunken lapse in judgment. This was a calculated, ongoing deception. David, finally finding his voice, offered his own hollow apology. "Mark, I messed up. I know I did. I never meant to hurt you, man. I swear." His words were equally meaningless, devoid of any genuine remorse, merely an attempt to mitigate the damage. I felt no sympathy, only a searing rage that threatened to consume me. The man I had considered a brother, the one I had trusted implicitly, had systematically dismantled my life, piece by agonizing piece. My gaze swept from David's bowed head to Sarah's tear-streaked face. "Get out," I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. It was not a request, but a command. "Both of you. I want Sarah out of this house by the end of the day." Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if she hadn't truly grasped the finality of my words. "And David," I continued, turning my full attention to him, "I never want to see you again. Ever." There was no going back from this. No reconciliation, no forgiveness. The trust was irrevocably broken. The foundation of our lives together shattered beyond repair. As they stood there, stunned and speechless, I knew I had to act quickly, decisively, to protect myself from further pain. The moment they left, I pulled out my phone again, this time to call a divorce lawyer. I needed legal counsel, not just to navigate the complexities of separation, but to ensure my financial and emotional well-being were safeguarded. The lawyer's calm, professional voice was a stark contrast to the tumult in my soul, a steady anchor in my storm-tossed world. I explained the situation, the hidden camera, the undeniable proof, and the utter devastation I felt. The initial steps of filing for divorce were laid out, a grim roadmap for the painful journey ahead. The thought of how to tell my friends and family weighed heavily on me. The network of people who had been complicit in planning Sarah's surprise party, The very people who had witnessed her betrayal deserved to know the truth. I decided to be truthful but concise, sharing the necessary details without succumbing to excessive drama. My family, when I eventually called them, rallied around me with unwavering support. Their love, a small but vital balm to my wounded spirit. They listened, they comforted, and they offered strength. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, I was not truly alone. The immediate aftermath was a blur of phone calls, legal consultations, and the agonizing process of watching Sarah pack her belongings. Her presence in the house now an unbearable burden. The silence she left behind was deafening, but it was a silence I knew I had to endure to begin the long, arduous journey of healing. The immediate period after Sarah moved out was a desolate landscape of silence and absence. The house, once filled with laughter, the comforting murmur of shared lives, and the playful barks of Baxter, now echoed with an unbearable emptiness. Each room, each object held a memory, a phantom limb of a life that no longer existed. I struggled with an overwhelming sense of loneliness, a gnawing ache that settled deep in my chest. But beneath the loneliness, a simmering anger began to solidify, hardening the soft edges of my grief. It wasn't just sadness. It was a righteous fury at the deception, the callous disregard for everything we had built. As the divorce proceedings slowly ground forward, my lawyer began to uncover more layers of Sarah's betrayal, each revelation a fresh wound. What I had initially perceived as a spontaneous, albeit devastating, mistake, a moment of weakness, was far more insidious. Sarah, it turned out, had not just been caught in a passionate embrace. She had been meticulously planning to leave me for David. Their affair wasn't a sudden spark. It was a slow burn that had been smoldering for months, carefully concealed beneath a facade of domesticity and marital bliss. The birthday surprise, designed by me as an elaborate gesture of love, had been nothing more than a convenient distraction for her, a final act in a play she had long since decided to exit. The financial implications of their premeditated actions added another bitter layer to the betrayal. My lawyer informed me that Sarah and David had not only been planning to move in together, but they had also actively discussed combining their finances. They had opened a joint bank account, looked at properties, and even talked about the future of Sarah's business, envisioning a life together that had been meticulously mapped out while I was completely oblivious. This wasn't a fleeting indiscretion. It was a calculated dismantling of my life, a cold, hard plan to replace me, and it showed a level of premeditation that chilled me to the bone. Every sweet gesture, every shared dream, every "I love you" from Sarah now felt like a cruel lie, a part of a script designed to keep me pacified while she prepared her escape. I needed to understand. I needed to hear it from her, to grasp the why behind such a devastating betrayal. My lawyer advised against it, warning that it might only cause more pain, but I insisted. I arranged one final formal meeting with Sarah, in a neutral setting, with our lawyers present. When I asked her why, her explanation was hollow, devoid of the genuine remorse I had hoped for, yet it provided a strange, twisted form of closure. She admitted she felt stifled, that our life together had become too predictable, too comfortable. She claimed she had fallen out of love, that the spark had died. David, she explained, offered her excitement, a fresh start, a sense of adventure she felt was missing from our marriage. It was a selfish, self-serving justification, but it was her truth. It was the truth of someone who had simply moved on, casting aside our decade-long history as if it were an old coat. While her words offered no comfort, they clarified one thing. This wasn't about me. or any failing on my part. It was about her desires, her choices, and her willingness to destroy everything to pursue them. The fallout within our tightly knit friend group was immediate and brutal. Like shrapnel from an explosion, our social circle was irrevocably shattered. Some friends, those who had seen Sarah's subtle shifts, or had always been wary of David, immediately rallied around me, offering unwavering support. Others, unable to reconcile the image of the loving couple they thought they knew with the harsh reality, sided with Sarah, believing her tearful narrative of a marriage that had simply run its course. A few, the well-meaning but ultimately ineffective peacemakers, tried to remain neutral, attempting to bridge a chasm that was simply too wide. David, facing the universal condemnation of his betrayal, disappeared from our social circle entirely, vanishing from group chats and gatherings, leaving behind only an awkward silence whenever his name was even inadvertently mentioned. The once vibrant tapestry of our shared lives was torn, leaving gaping holes and frayed edges. The process of rebuilding my life was slow, arduous, and often painful. Each day felt like a monumental effort, a step through thick mud. Therapy became a crucial lifeline, a safe space to unpack the trauma, the anger, the grief, and the profound sense of loss. My therapist helped me understand that what I was experiencing was not just a breakup, but a deep grief for the future I had envisioned, the family I'd hoped to build. I slowly began to rediscover old hobbies I had neglected: hiking, photography, reading. I cautiously started making new friends, people who knew me as Mark, not Sarah's husband, people who offered fresh perspectives and genuine connection. It was a painstaking process, but with each small step, I felt a flicker of hope, a renewed sense of self. The day the divorce was finalized was not a celebratory moment, as some might imagine. There were no cheers, no sense of triumph. It was a quiet, somber occasion, marked by the signing of documents and the exchange of formalities. I felt a profound sense of relief, undoubtedly, a shedding of the heavy burden of a marriage built on lies. But beneath the relief was a deep, pervasive sadness for the life I thought I had, for the innocent dreams that had been so cruelly shattered. It was the end of an era, a closing chapter that left a permanent scar, yet also a clear path forward. Looking back, I reflected on the hidden camera, the unintentional catalyst for this life-altering event. It was meant to capture joy, a moment of pure, unadulterated happiness. Instead, it had revealed a painful, devastating truth. The irony was not lost on me. While the truth had shattered my world, breaking me into a million pieces, it had also, paradoxically, set me free. Free from a life built on a lie. Free from a partner who had secretly detached herself. Free to grieve, to heal, and to eventually truly live again. The camera, a simple device, had become an instrument of painful liberation, forcing me to confront a reality I desperately wanted to ignore. And for that I was, in a strange and complicated way, grateful. Life after the divorce slowly began to take on a new rhythm, a tempo set by my own choices and desires. I moved out of the house that held so many ghost memories, finding a new apartment across town. It was smaller, cozier, and entirely mine. There were no remnants of Sarah's taste in the decor, no shared history clinging to the walls. I decorated it in a way that felt distinctly my own, with books, art, and furniture that reflected my emerging independence. It was a space for me to breathe, to simply exist without the weight of a past relationship suffocating me. My career as a software engineer, once a stable backdrop to my personal life, now became a primary focus. I channeled my energy into new projects, finding solace and a sense of accomplishment in the logical world of code. The long hours, once a source of minor marital tension, were now a welcome distraction, a way to rebuild my self-esteem and future. The healing process was not linear, nor was it swift. It was a mosaic of good days and bad, of moments of quiet peace interspersed with unexpected waves of anger or sadness. But gradually, imperceptibly at first, I started to feel lighter. The constant ache in my chest began to recede, replaced by a dull throb that only resurfaced on particularly difficult anniversaries, or when a familiar song played on the radio. Therapy continued to be an invaluable tool, helping me to not only process the trauma, but also to understand my own role in the relationship. Not in terms of blame, but in terms of growth. I learned to identify patterns, to trust my intuition, and to articulate my needs more effectively. Slowly, painstakingly, I learned to trust myself again, to believe in my judgment, and to feel worthy of genuine love and respect. The lessons I learned from this devastating experience were etched deeply into my soul. I learned about the fragile nature of trust, how easily it could be shattered, and how incredibly difficult it was to rebuild. I learned the critical importance of addressing subtle issues in a relationship before they fester and become insurmountable chasms. Those nagging feelings of unease I had dismissed. The small shifts in Sarah's behavior I had rationalized. They were my intuition speaking, and I had ignored it at my peril. Perhaps the most profound lesson was the importance of self-worth. For too long, I had intertwined my happiness and identity with Sarah's, allowing her needs and desires to overshadow my own. The betrayal forced me to confront my own value, to recognize that my worth was inherent, not dependent on someone else's affection or fidelity. It was a painful education, but one that ultimately empowered me. As for the future, I found myself looking forward with a sense of cautious optimism. I wasn't actively looking for love, nor did I feel ready for it. The scars were still too fresh, the lessons still too new, but I was open to it when the time was right, when I felt truly whole and complete on my own. I knew what I wanted in a partner now: honesty, transparency, and a genuine commitment to navigating life's challenges together, not separately. And perhaps more importantly, I knew what I wouldn't tolerate: secrecy, disrespect, and any form of betrayal. My standards had been irrevocably raised, forged in the fires of heartbreak, but also in the strength of my own recovery. The camera, that small, unassuming device hidden behind a plant, remained a potent symbol. It was an accidental tool, meant to capture joy, but instead, it had uncovered a truth so brutal, it had torn my world apart. The irony of it all continued to resonate. I often thought about how different my life might have been had I never installed it. I might have lived in blissful ignorance for months, perhaps even years, before the truth inevitably surfaced in an even more agonizing way. It was a painful revelation, a violent awakening, but it was also a liberation. Sometimes, the most unexpected things can reveal what you truly need to see, even if the vision is initially devastating. The camera didn't cause the betrayal. It merely illuminated it, allowing me to confront a reality that needed to be faced. To anyone watching, anyone who might be going through a similar situation, I offer this message of hope and resilience. Trust your gut feelings, those subtle whispers of doubt, those nagging inconsistencies. They are often your subconscious trying to protect you. Don't rationalize them away. Prioritize your own well-being, your own peace, above all else. It's an incredibly difficult journey, filled with pain and despair, but it is also a journey of self-discovery, of reclaiming your strength, and of learning to love yourself unconditionally. You are stronger than you think, and you deserve a life built on truth and genuine connection. Today, as I sit in my new, peaceful space, perhaps looking out at the city lights from my window, a quiet smile sometimes touches my lips. It's not a smile of mirth, but one of acceptance, of hard-won peace. Baxter, my loyal companion, often curls up at my feet, his presence a comforting anchor in my new reality. The wounds are still there, but they have faded into scars, reminders of a battle fought and won. I am not the same man who meticulously planned that birthday surprise, filled with naive hope. I am a man forged in fire, stronger, wiser, and more authentically myself than I have ever been. The future is unwritten, but for the first time in a long time, I am excited to write it.